Brought to you by businessblueprint.com.au.
I guess took a lesson out of my own book, probably this one here, and said, I think the only way that we're going to be able to exponentially grow this business is by strategic alliances. So on the 1st of January this year, I started writing my latest book, which is called The Secrets of $1 Million Business. And as I was writing that, it dawned on me that the things I knew about business, one of them, which is the power of these alliances, I actually wasn't doing it in my own business. So on the 10th of January, I finished writing that book. So I wrote that book in 9 days. And it's available on Amazon if anybody wants to have a look at it. And on day 10, I got an email. And I'm a bit of a believer in serendipity. And I got an email, and it was from a company called Smart Company. I don't know if any of you subscribe to Smart Company, but if you don't, you should. They send out free emails every day. They tell you, at the moment, they tell you who's going broke pretty much every day, which is very sad because there's so many big companies falling over. But they also tell you lots of, really interesting information. And the one that I got on the 10th of January said, here's the top 10 entrepreneurs for 2011. And there was a list of 10 people and what they'd done and what businesses they had and who, what they were doing. And as I started reading this list, the first one happened to be in recruitment. And I read about this woman in recruitment, and I thought, I can see a synergy between what she does and what we do. Maybe I should contact her. Then I read the second one, and she was also in a recruitment style industry or in HR. And I thought, I can see a synergy with her as well. Maybe I should contact her. Anyway, I end up reading all 10 of them, thinking that I probably should just contact all 10 of them. So, armed with my lack of fear attitude, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to do it. Because what's the worst thing that can happen to me? The worst thing that can happen to me is that they will ignore me. And in fact, it's interesting. I went back a couple of years ago, probably 5 years ago, I went to London and I spent 2 months studying screenwriting, which is another one of my passions. And I want to tell you this story because I want to identify sometimes the thing that holds us back in getting these sorts of relationships. I mean, I've had relationships through my business career with companies like American Express and Vero Insurance, which own all the big insurance brands, or they used to, that was their name back then. CCH Australia. I mean, some really, really big names. And the only thing that was holding me back with this business was this fear. And to go back to the London story, 4 years ago, I went to London and had an episode where I was overcome with fear that actually changed my life. And I want to quickly tell it to you because I want you to realise that there are moments that we have these epiphanies in our life. And this was one for me. I was in London, as I said, to study screenwriting, and I got myself a flat, wanted to do the whole living there, had never lived in another country before, wanted to, do this kind of find myself thing. And the first night I was there, I stayed in the flat and just, I was tired, jet lag. Second night I decided I would go and have dinner. And so I got out of my flat, walked down the road, jumped on the tube, went to Chelsea. Now, I don't know how many of you know what London's like, but Chelsea's a really nice area of London, and the King's Road is a really nice area in that part of town. So I thought I'll go down there, I'll find myself a pub, I'll sit down and have a meal. I can't just sit in this flat for the next 2 months. I've got to get myself out. So I got off the tube and I started walking down the King's Road to find somewhere to eat. And I got to the first pub and I looked in and I thought, oh God, there's a heap of guys in there. I don't want to, as a single woman, I don't want to walk into a pub full of guys. You know what it's like? You feel like that, is anyone going to say anything to you? And, so I won't go in that pub. I'll just find another one. So I walked down a little bit further and then there was another pub. And I looked in that one as well and, there's a few guys in there as well and that's a bit crowded. And so I'll just keep going. I'll find another one. So I walked down a bit further and the next one kind of looked the same. And an hour and a half later, I was still walking down the King's Road looking for somewhere to have dinner, to the point that I had gotten myself so paranoid that I got back on the train and went back to my flat. I walked in the door, I was starving, I was wet. I was distraught, and I sat on the lounge and burst into tears. And all of a sudden had this epiphany that the fear was absolutely paralysing me. And so I sat down, I thought to myself, why am I so frightened? What's the worst thing that could happen to me in this situation? And I rationalised that the worst thing that could happen was that somebody could come up to me and talk to me, and I could say, look, no, thank you, I'm not interested. That's the worst thing that was going to happen to me. And yet I had let this fear paralyse me to the point of inaction. So that was one of those moments in life when it had an effect on everything else I've done in my life. That moment of thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I had that again on the 10th of January. When I read this list of people that had done these amazing things and were growing amazing businesses, and businesses that I could see some really good synergies in, that, you know, we could do something for them, they could do something for us. And the only thing that was stopping me from doing anything was this fear that they might, not answer me. I mean, that was basically it. So armed with that realisation, I wrote them an email. And I had phone numbers for a couple of them, and I rang them, but most of them I only had emails for. And so I wrote them an email, and I said, dear whoever, I've just read about you in Smart Company. I'm so impressed. What an awesome story. Kudos to you. I've started a business 12 months ago. This is what I do. I can see some synergies between you and I. And because it's a new year, I've decided just to ask for what I want. I figure that the worst thing you can say is no. And I put a smiley face at the end of it. And so I would love to have a coffee with you, my treat, if you can find the time to do that. How many of those 10 people do you think answered me? No, it wasn't all 10, it was 9. It was 9 of them answered me. How many of the 9 do you think I got a coffee with? All 9 of them. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, it was 8 of them. It was 8 of them. One of them, we're still back and forthing. But out of those 8 people, because I wrote one email, I got 2 strategic alliances, 1 joint venture, and 4 new clients of massive proportion, because I wrote one email to them. So my point with all of that is to chase up those opportunities. You've really got to step out of your comfort zone, overcome that fear that someone's going to say no, because at the end of the day, the worst thing that can happen is nothing. So overcome that fear. But what that has led to is an amazing opportunity for us, because through those 8 people that I met, we now have the opportunity to take our business, or actually are, not just will have the opportunity, but we are taking our business into the United States at the beginning of next year. Now that all came about because somebody I met through and had coffee with invited me to a networking function. That networking function, I met somebody else who invited me to go to a venture capital function. At that venture capital function, someone said, oh, you guys should pitch your business at a pitching event. I didn't even know what a pitching event was at that point. So we said, yeah, sure, we'll do that. What is it? No idea. Oh, you're supposed to get up and speak for 2.5 minutes about your business to a room full of investors. We did that. We won the pitching competition. We got sent to Silicon Valley. As Dale mentioned, somebody offered us $4 million within 8 hours of being there. And to cut a very long story short, we came back. We now have an Australian-based venture capital partner. And as of next week, we'll probably have a partnership with one of the 3 major telcos in this country, which will take us not only to America, but to Canada, to India, to the UK, and to Singapore. And that all happened because I sent 8 emails.
Brought to you by businessblueprint.com.au.